David Milstein is currently a research analyst for Senator Ted Cruz and has proudly worked for the senator for almost 3 years, primarily focusing on issues related to Israel. David has played an important role on a number of the senator's pro-Israel initiatives, such as working to fund Israeli missile defense programs, introducing the PLO Accountability Act to close down the PLO office in Washington. That would be nice. Speaking out against Palestinian terrorism that has targeted both Israeli and American citizens, chairing a hearing on how the executive branch, more often than not, does not stand up for American victims of terrorism, introducing legislation to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as Israel's eternal capital, which ought to be obvious, and much more. Now, prior to joining Senator Cruz's staff, David graduated from Dickinson College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where, among other things, the Washington, we can't name them now because of political correctness, but they're related to Indians, football team once practiced, where he majored in political science and minored in history. At Dickinson, he served 2 terms as president of the Dickinson College Republicans, wrote political opinion pieces for the school newspaper, and was a leading voice for conservatism, bringing in prominent conservative speakers to campus. David has also played a leadership role with an organization called Young Jewish Conservatives, whose mission is to build a community of politically conservative young Jews who strongly support Israel. David Milstein, come on up, and we are grateful to honor you tonight.
David, you are the hope for our future.
Thank you.
And one of the best things that we do at EMET is pass the torch of leadership to the next generation, and I am so honored that David will be our first Young Defender of the Truth Award recipient. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Cal, for your kind words, and congratulations to all of tonight's awardees. I am humbled and tremendously proud to be the first person to receive EMET's Young Defender of the Truth Award, recognizing the next generation committed to supporting a strong U.S.-Israel alliance. Sarah, you and your team are tireless advocates for the truth. EMET plays an important role on Capitol Hill, educating and informing staffers, members, and other policymakers about the growing threats facing both America and Israel. Thank you, EMET, for this incredible honor. Before I begin my brief remarks, I would like to quickly take a moment to thank a few people without whom I would not have the privilege of standing before you all today. To my family. It was almost 3 years ago to this very day, June 7, 2013, that the person who I look up to as my hero and father figure, my grandfather, Leo Strauss Jr., passed away. He and my grandmother, Sylvia, who is here tonight, were married for over 61 years. I am truly blessed to have such grandparents. They instilled in me from a very young age, through countless stories and history lessons at the dinner table, a deep love of country, pride in my faith, and a historical appreciation for Israel. I will never forget their recounting of what it felt like to live through the United Nations vote to recognize the Jewish state in November 1947, and then Israel's War of Independence that following May. I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to go to Israel as a teenager when my grandparents took 3 generations of family on a meticulously planned 2-week trip. Only by being there did I fully appreciate and comprehend its special significance. Many of you know that same feeling. When you descend onto the tarmac at Ben Gurion Airport, an overwhelming sense of emotion, pride, and awe overtake you, as you realize you are walking in the same place as our forefathers thousands of years ago. To my mom and Jenna, thank you for always supporting, encouraging, and being there for me. And thank you to Mark, the newest member of our family, who passionately speaks the truth on the radio and TV each day. To Paul, Victoria, Nick, and Sam, you are friends and mentors before colleagues who I look up to each day. Finally, I would not be on this stage but for another person, a man of rock-solid core principles and convictions who has also stood at this podium. I'm thankful to work for Senator Ted Cruz.
Hey!
He cherishes America's relationship with Israel and is always eager to do more to support our closest ally in the Middle East. Thank you, Senator Cruz. Ladies and gentlemen, this award is certainly a special recognition. It is based on many hours of tireless work throughout my 26 years, but it is also just the beginning of a long journey. There is much work to be done because the truth is under assault and worth fighting for. To be a young defender of the truth comes from a sense of duty, to push back against falsehoods and refuse to stay silent. It is to have the courage to speak with moral clarity. When it comes to America and Israel, it means proudly strengthening a relationship that provides enormous benefits for our two nations. It means recognizing that we are both in the same fight against radical Islamic terrorism, whether it is from Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, or ISIS. It means providing Israel the necessary security assistance to defend herself, because this is an investment in our own security as well. It means America must never be neutral when it comes to Israel, but must instead always stand unapologetically with our allies, especially the only true democracy in the Middle East that is a beacon of freedom in a deeply dangerous part of the world. It means condemning the anti-Semitism and double standards spewing forth from the United Nations and other international bodies, and opposing all attempts to whitewash history that deny the ancient connection of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. It means fighting every effort to delegitimize Israel, including the BDS movement, whose real intention, as we all know, is to isolate, weaken, and destroy Israel. And finally, it means speaking out against Palestinian terrorism and the incitement that encourages it, which have led to the slaughter of both Israeli and American citizens. We have already mentioned the heinous attack at the Sarona shopping center in Tel Aviv tonight, in which at least 4 people have been murdered. But I wanted to add one aspect that we have not yet mentioned. The Times of Israel has reported that it occurred in a Max Brenner, a popular restaurant in both Israel and America. According to a witness who works at the restaurant, the 2 gunmen walked inside, ordered a dessert, and then, without touching their food, got up, pulled out their weapons, and started shooting. These terrorists also reportedly came from Hebron. It is worth noting that despite the claims that this conflict is allegedly about occupation, the terrorists decided to travel all the way to Tel Aviv to carry out this attack. Our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with all the victims, their families, and the countless others who have thankfully survived yet experienced this evil act. It is only another continent away where we also again are witnessing the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe, where Jews do not feel even safe to walk the streets. And we see a nation led by the deniers of historical truth, with a systematic effort to exterminate the Jewish people is known as a manipulative fairy tale concocted by the West. Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism, where America and Israel are known as the Big and Little Satan, respectively. Ballistic missiles are recently test-fired with the phrase, "Israel must be wiped out," printed in Hebrew, threatening a modern-day Holocaust. It is our obligation to take these threats seriously. As part of the next generation, we must fulfill the promise of our grandparents' generation, the greatest generation, to never forget the horrific atrocities of the past, to ensure that they never occur again. I am honored to receive the Young Defender of the Truth Award because I understand we all bear this leadership responsibility together. It is up to current and future generations to carry that baton. This is what motivates me each day. Thank you.